I just want to say welcome back to everyone who has been keeping up with our growth through adversity interviews. These interviews, these conversations are really meant to be inspiring and healing. They're meant to be true and authentic to lived experiences that real life people have had, because I have just seen and know the power that stories, real, true stories have in our lives, I personally and professionally. And so it's been such a privilege for me to be able to have a space where we can do these live, but then also record them and share them so that others can benefit from them. And I did them for a good quarter. So last year when we started the group, and now we are back to opening them up in this second quarter of 2022. And Marisa is actually our opener, and I'm so excited. Thank you so much for being with us today, Marisa.
Well, thank you so much for inviting me. I didn't know I was going to be an opening for getting started again, so that's a nice surprise.
Surprise. And for anyone that's new or just hasn't maybe been here for a while, but you haven't seen one of our interviews, I am Dr. Toni. I am the creator of the Life's Reset community. It is not my community. It is our community. It is for leaders. It is for achievers. It is for folks that actually care about meaningful success and deep satisfaction in all aspects of life, be it at work or at home, because that we want to enjoy life. And when we enjoy our lives, we're able to be there for others and help them enjoy their lives more. So I'm really passionate about this work, about this community. And I'm so thankful that we have this space here today. And I'm going to begin by opening up this conversation with Marisa, who, you know what, Marisa, if we can first kind of start with who you are today, what your life is like today, and then we're going to go into a really important part of your story that our title reflects, of Voiceless to Empowered. But let's start with kind of where you're at today, how you describe yourself, what you're up to, and all of that good stuff.
Sure, absolutely. Well, I describe myself as a women's empowerment coach and mentor. And my passion is really to support heart-centered women who are struggling with one or more family relationships. I support them in really being able to stand in their divine feminine power so they can create healthy boundaries and really authentically express themselves so they can really be accepted for who they are, but really create the healthy relationships that we all want, especially with our family members. So that's the work that I do, and I do that through coaching and programs. And you want to know about my life as well as it is today? Or, yeah, I have an amazing life today. I love sharing about my life. I'm actually originally from Ontario, Canada, and my husband and I now live in the beautiful country of Colombia, South America. We spent a number of years living in different Central and South American countries looking for our slice of paradise to get away from the long, cold Ontario winters. And after 2 days of being here in Colombia, I think it was back in 2013. I have to go back and check my notes, but yeah, we knew after 2 days that this was it. So yeah, I just, I'm living a life that I never dreamed was possible for me, given where I started.
Beautiful. So beautiful. I don't think, just trying to think while you're talking, I don't think I've been to Colombia. So I would like to experience that one day, especially with the way that you're talking about it.
Well, it is a country that a lot of people avoided for many years because it used to be very dangerous to come here. But we call it kind of the hidden gem now because well, when we first came, there weren't a lot of expats. They're starting to come more and more because they're recognizing how beautiful it is. So it's not as scary as it once was.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's beautiful. So you didn't become a coach out of nowhere, right? If one thing, what I have seen time and time again, especially in the coaching industry, the mentorship industry, is folks get attracted to that kind of work because of personal experiences that they've had. There is something that they experienced that made some kind of meaningful influence or impact in their life, and they were like called in that direction. And so I'm curious for you, Marisa, is that connected with the piece of your story that you want to share with us today around this experience of feeling voiceless in your
Mhm.
life, like your voice not being heard, not being expressed, not being wanted or warranted, to feeling this more empowered way of being and of living. Is that connected for you?
Yeah, very much so. Everything I do is connected to where I came from and my journey of healing along the way. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Where would you say this voiceless, the kind of peak challenging
Mm.
time of the voiceless to empowered journey that you've experienced, where would you say it begins?
The voicelessness began really from early childhood because, like many people, I grew up in a very dysfunctional home. There was a lot of physical and emotional abuse from my father towards myself, my siblings, my mom. So I really lived in terror. I learned really early on that it was much safer not to speak, and that's why I had no voice, because there was really no space to express anything. I just wanted to, and I actually became the peacemaker, the peacekeeper in the family, just wanting to keep everybody safe. So I was really terrified of my father. He didn't understand how to deal with his anger and his stress, and so he projected it on all of us. And so I never really knew when he was around if he would. The deepest fear I had, to be honest, was I was really afraid that he might accidentally kill one of us in one of his fits of rage, because he totally lost control. Later on, I learned that it was called like a dry drunk,
Mm,
because he wasn't an alcoholic, but his behavior would be similar, from what I learned later on. So it just wasn't safe to speak. And so I kept quiet. And because of that, I also had no self-confidence, no self-worth. I didn't know myself because there was never any space to explore who I am. I just was completely shut down of everything, feelings included, just to numb the pain as well. So I was numb for everything. So that's kind of
yeah.
where it began.
And that, as a coping mechanism, really
Yeah.
as a
Mhm.
safety protective way of being. And um, I know that that is something that those that have experienced childhood trauma, um, many can resonate with. Now, different people do deal with it differently, but oftentimes as a child, we blame ourselves,
Mhm.
because developmentally that's just what makes sense. That's where we are at. And so we don't always recognize, in fact, most of the times while we're in it, we don't recognize, because we can't recognize that the voicelessness, the silence, the hiding, the playing small is a way to keep ourselves safe,
Mhm.
that it's adaptive. And so do you recall, like, at what point you recognize that that is what was happening for you? It's not because you just were supposed to be this quiet, shy person,
Mhm.
although we all
Mhm.
have our own personalities, but there was this other component of needing to feel safe and protected in your environment. Like, how, how did how did you come to realize that that's part of what was happening for you?
Well, I think it was in my early 20s.
Mm,
I actually started to go and see a counselor because I was very unhappy. I was very sad. I had difficulty making friends and connections with people. And I didn't know why. I would just think, like, obviously, I just always thought, what's wrong with me? Why doesn't anybody want to hang out with me? I had gone away to college, um, and I still had difficulty making friends. So I think it was in my second year of college that I sought some help, because I thought, I just don't want to live like this forever. And it was during one of the sessions that my counselor had asked me how I felt about a roommate, someone that I was rooming with. And I don't even remember how we met, this person, and how we ended up rooming together. But I remembered when she asked me that question, I was like, I had no idea. Like,
mm,
she just said, well, how do you feel about, this person? I'm like, I don't know. And then I started feeling like, again, what's wrong with me? Don't I have any feelings? And I went into that space, and I just realized that because I had numbed out, for fear of feeling pain and sadness and all that, I was not even able to experience the positive feelings of joy or happiness. So I was just really disconnected. So I think that was the first time I recognized it, was when I was asked that question, how do you feel about this person that I was rooming with? And I didn't have an answer.
I'm so glad you shared that, because when we come to do an interview like the one that we're having today, when we say from voiceless to empowered, that's a powerful statement to make. And it's very succinct, and we need to make it succinct in order for it to be a title that fits, right? But
Right.
it also can, at first glance, make it seem like, oh, like from this to this and this time and it's done, and it's just like, no, and it's, but that's not how, I mean, from what you just shared, Marisa, it's like, no, like my whole childhood was this experience. I had no idea that was going on until I became an adult. And, right. And so it's not, I think it's really important for people to hear that it's not because there's something wrong with you, or you're broken, or you need to be fixed, or anything like that, like any kind of deficiency lens. Like it's not that. If you're feeling any sense of offness, disconnect, numbness, voicelessness, lack of empowerment, it's an unpeeling, it's a process for all of this work to, and I even use the word work lightly because it does feel like work, but also there's so many negative connotations that come with the word work. So I use that lightly, but this process of unveiling what is happening inside of ourselves that is hard to put our fingers on, it's hard to understand by ourselves. But when we are ready, which is different timing for each of us, to reach out and accept and receive support, often, like you shared about how counselor, scary is all get out. It was scary for me the first time.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
Right.
Yeah. I was terrified of going in and uncovering those layers, like you said, because I had another really deep fear. I knew that I could live my life the way I had been living it up to that point. I could go to school, or I could have a job, or, I could cope, right? But I thought, if I start really looking in there, I thought if I open up this can of worms, I thought I'd end up in the psych ward of a hospital in a complete basket case mess, and just would not be able to function. That was my biggest fear, that I would not be able to handle it, because I knew there was a lot buried down there. So I was afraid, like really afraid of uncovering it.
And that fear, we have to, get to a point in our journey to be willing to admit that, like, it's okay if we have those fears. Of course you had those fears because that's what you saw, emotions being out of control. Of course, you had that fear and you didn't want that to happen for you. You started kind of peeling the layers back and noticing a little bit of what was going on in your early 20s with your counselor. What was the next phase of that process for you?
It's interesting, because I've been working on, the inner work. That was over 40 years ago. And I really think it's a long time. And so even thinking back to piece all the pieces together, because it definitely was a process. It wasn't an overnight thing. I often say to people that I feel that every decade I'm like a different person. Like when I look back, it's like, even at photographs, I'm like, I don't even recognize that person. It's like I lived several lifetimes within this one because of the unveiling and the peeling back of the layers. But I think it's just step by step, I started taking more risks and doing things that I was afraid of. And this was before those quotes were out, about, feel the fear and do it anyway. That stuff wasn't around. This was like in the 80s, I think. And so, but I somehow knew that if I didn't do things that I was afraid of doing, I'd always be afraid of them. So for example, I was terrified about, speaking in front of people. So I remember signing up. At the time, I was a practicing Catholic. Now I don't, practice a particular religion. I'm very connected to God and source. But, back then I was a practicing Catholic, and I was terrified of speaking in front of people. So I signed up to do the readings at church. And this was a huge congregation. And again, I was terrified, but again, doing it, I got better and better at it. And I think another thing that really helped me was my connection to God. I really found going within and connecting to my God that I believed had power, and listening to that small, still voice really helped me along the way also in taking leaps of faith that were pretty scary. And yeah, it's just, it's hard to say. I'm thinking back again in my 20s, I was engaged to be married actually. And I had this sense that this was not the right person for me. And yet I was very much in love with this person. The wedding date was booked. I had the deposit on my dress, bridesmaids are chosen. I mean, we got everything in order. It's going to happen 8 months down the road, but it was all, in process. But I kept having these feelings that he wasn't the right one for me. And I resisted it for a while, but again, because it was in my prayer time that I was really feeling this. And so I knew I had to listen to that. And so I made the decision to end the engagement. And it was really difficult, but it was the right decision, because even my fiance at the time had said to me, well, if you hadn't said something, I would have, because he wasn't ready for marriage. But I don't think he would have. I think he would have gone through. A lot of people go through, even though they have these feelings. And so that gave me a lot of confidence in trusting that inner voice and the inner wisdom. And so throughout my life, there's been many times when I've had those experiences where it didn't make any sense to make the choices that I made, but I knew it was from inner guidance. And so taking those steps led me here to where I am now. And it helped me to feel more empowered as well, because I'm taking those steps in spite of what the people around me might have been saying and thinking that I was crazy.
Which is huge for someone who lived so long in fear of someone else's reaction or lashing out, or just the uncertainty and lack of safety around it all. It's huge. There's so much courage in each and every one of those steps, but it really did require, right? Like step by step by step by step. It wasn't like just a huge leap and then it's done. And now I'm
exactly. And another big part of it just came to me because, again, we're talking many years ago. I don't actually talk about all that in such detail on a lot of interviews that I have. So it's starting to bubble up a little bit. But another big part of it was really learning to love myself, because I hated myself. I labeled myself as ugly. I was stupid. I was completely unlovable. Nobody would ever want to be with me. I mean, I really believed that, like, deeply. And the first self-help book I ever read, before I think the term self-help even existed, was a book called I Eat Much Baby, But I'm All I've Got. And I don't remember the author, but it was a book that really helped me to accept myself for who I am. And just really recognize that it doesn't really, we all have faults, we all make mistakes, but underneath it all, we're all divine beings, beautiful beings, magnificent beings, I like to say. So little by little, I started to like myself first. Love was a big step, was too much of a leap. To go from hate to love was a little much, but little by little, I started to like and appreciate myself more and more for who I am.
And those are two such important components. And so in my book, in the reset, those are two that are hit on too, and they come up in some way, shape, or form. The connection to a higher power, be it God or whatever term someone uses, and this connection to self, which are interlinked in my opinion. And there's practical steps on how to do that in there. But you mentioning this is really, I think, amazing, because that thread is evident throughout, I think, if I remember correctly, every single interview. And so there's something there, right? Like, you don't have to take my word for it. Like, listen to threads and all of these interviews of folks like Marisa, like myself, who have experienced challenge, trauma, adversity multiple times over, and have found that there is an anchor, a foundation in incorporating and embedding and integrating those two things. And what I'd like to ask you, Marisa, is, because there was so much fear that was kind of ruling the roost, so to speak, what helped you to differentiate as you were taking risks or making decisions, and this initial peeling back? What helped you to differentiate between I'm going to do this, or I'm not going to do this because I'm afraid. So that you're making a choice from fear versus making a choice from this connection that you have, this internal, I think you said like when you were in prayer or meditation, this internal connection that you have. What helped you discern the difference? Because that's something that is challenging for a lot of people is, am I wanting to say no to this or move away from this or go that way or take this risk or make that decision because I am scared and I'm trying to avoid something, or because it's calling me, this is the direction I can feel that my internal self and soul is pointing me in. What helps you discern?
Yeah, that's a great question. The first time that I really moved into that space for making a major decision, like about ending that engagement, I had an actual experience that I hadn't had before. I was actually trying to study for an exam. I was in teachers college at the time and I couldn't concentrate. And so I decided to just stop and go within. Like I said, at that time, I called it prayer. Now I would call it meditation. But I could feel the inner struggle because I didn't want to end this engagement because, like I said, I love this person. I started thinking about what's everybody going to think and all the repercussions of ending it. But it was just something really strong. It's really hard to describe. It's something inside that was deeper than the fear that was guiding me, that was just kind of telling me that this isn't really what I think it is or what I think it's going to be. And so I remember in that moment when I surrendered to it, and again, I didn't have that word surrender back then, but I remembered saying, okay, if this is really what's best for me, then that's what I'll do. I will end it. And as soon as I said that, I had this peace like through my whole body, and I had heat go from head to toe, like just through my whole body. I just felt this real calmness and this real peacefulness. And I just knew it was the right decision. And that happens. I'm getting goosebumps as I'm saying.
I feel it too.
I just really feel
40 years ago, but we can feel it right now.
I know, it's amazing. Yeah, it's a different feeling. It's a deeper, more intimate feeling than the fear. The fear is louder, but this is a softer, more intimate knowing. Does that make sense?
So I know exactly what you mean. And I think the challenge that with a lot of the folks, at least that are attracted to work with me, high achievers, folks that we can get really stuck in our heads and get really analytical and want to logic things to death, is that it is felt. This is in abstract lands, so to speak, in that although it can be scientifically measured, emotions can be scientifically measured now, but it is felt. And if we don't have a connection with our feelings, with our physical body, with our emotions, if we're not willing to open up that valve, even though it's petrifying, then we miss out on that information. We miss out on the information, and we can get so stuck in doing just what you said, what the fear says, but what's everyone else going to think? Right. So I can feel it. I know exactly what you mean. And I think for folks that are listening in, it's okay if it doesn't make any logical sense. What I would say is just sit back, rewind 5 minutes, and only feel. Like listen and feel, which is going to be a challenge for some and going to be easier for others. It would have been a challenge for me 10 years ago, easy for me now, right? We're all on a journey. But to just notice the reaction, the sensory information that we get that isn't coming, just from our cognitive thinking mind. So it's really powerful. I could feel it while you're describing it. It was like,
yeah. Another thing that's helpful that I found helpful over the years is journaling. I mean, I started journaling quite young because it was a way of, expressing and safe in a safe space. The journal wasn't going to bite back or throw things at me or, hurt me in any way. But by journaling, it also helped me to uncover some of the deeper truths and guided me as well. So I think that's a really, really powerful and effective tool to get in touch with those feelings. It helped me a lot and still does. I still journal.
Absolutely. And I want to validate anyone that is having a reaction to journaling, because there are so many reactions that we have to all different ways of self-development. I also started young writing like poetry because it was like that's the only place I can do it, right? And then I stopped because for a couple of reasons. One, because I was forced to write what I didn't want to write about, and the more and more schooling I went in,
Yes.
same reading. But then also it was like I gave it a negative connotation. Like it's kind of like wishy-washy, or it's just not helpful, or I kind of gave it, even though I knew I was going to be a therapist and I was studying therapy, it was my own guardedness, right? So wherever someone's at on that spectrum, like maybe you love it, and it's an expressive outlet for you, maybe you despise it and you're really like, oh, like that just sounds too wishy-washy or woo-woo or abstract for me. Wherever you're at is okay, and I just want to share that, because you don't have to stay stuck where you're at either way. Like there's a spectrum that you can journey on as long as you're open to the experience. Now I have opened myself up in the past several years to exploring that, and you can explore it in different ways. There's different ways, right, to take pen to paper, and there's a lot of actually research that supports the kinesthetic and emotional processing benefits that come from doing just that. And some people sometimes need a little bit more guidance than other times, but I would agree with you, Marisa, that there is power to that. It's not the only thing, so it's okay if it's not your thing right now.
Yeah, it's just one tool. There's many. Yeah.
So speaking of tools, what would you say are your go-to empowerment tools for yourself, as well as those that you help nowadays with where you're at in your journey now, present day?
Empowerment tools. I'm not quite sure what you mean.
Whatever that means for you. So as we have the title of Voiceless to Empowered, maybe let me backtrack. What the empowered space that you're in now, how would you describe that, or what's so different about that than the voicelessness
thanks, that helps a lot. There's a huge difference, because like I said, the voiceless was just total fear, so keep your mouth shut because it's a lot safer. But because I've learned how to express myself in ways that are less confrontational to other people, right? I've learned how to communicate from a place of love and connection instead of just reacting to people. That makes a huge difference in the conversation and in the relationship. And so that's a huge thing, because before, like, what happens is, and this I see with so many people, is we want loving communication with our family, with our friends, with our loved ones. And many times that's not what happens. There's all kinds of conflict, there's arguing, there's bickering back and forth, there's fighting, there's alienation, there's all kinds of stuff going on that's really, really painful, right? And a big reason for that is because people are reacting from their unhealed wounds from the past. And so that's why it's such an important part of the journey, is to be able to first identify what your wounds are, not so that you can dwell in them and get stuck in them and wallow in them, no, but understand what they are and then heal from them and let them go, so that you can actually have authentic conversations that come from love, not from reaction and projection of pain. So that's how I deal with things now. And that doesn't mean I never get triggered, right? I mean, I teach this stuff, and I've been working with my own tools for many, many years. It doesn't mean I'm perfect. It doesn't mean I never get triggered or upset. But what it means is I can much more easily recognize when I've been triggered. Sometimes as soon as something comes out of my mouth, like to my husband, for example, I can just sense, it doesn't even have to be harsh, because we don't have harsh stuff going on. We've been together over 20 years, but I can feel just a shift in the energy of my tone, perhaps. And I'll even just say sometimes, oh, I've been triggered. It's like I'll notice it, right? And so that's very empowering, to take responsibility when I feel something other than love, other than peace, other than joy, to look and say, okay, what's going on? That's another layer that we talked about. There's so many layers. And that's something we have to really accept, because for a long time, I judge myself when I would get triggered, because I'm like, I mean, I've been doing this for so many years. So I have this thing that I should, and I talk about that word a lot too. I should be able to do this now. I shouldn't get triggered anymore, but we're human, right? We're gonna have these situations happening. But imagine if everyone just took responsibility for their own feelings and recognized that, when we're triggered, it's our stuff, and just own it, not to beat ourselves up, not to make ourselves wrong, and actually to have compassion, self-compassion and understanding, right? Then we can let them go. And then the other people with us have more compassion as well, because they realize we're not trying to blame them either. You got to let go of blame. That's such a big thing. You have to let go of blame for self or others. I could go on that topic. I'm just going to stop there. But
I hear you. I'm with you. We addressed the shoulds and shouldn't
okay.
that too. So I'm like, air quotes right there with you. So I hear you.
Yeah.
It's all such important conversation to have for someone right now, Marisa, that may be somewhere in the vicinity of feeling voiceless.
Mm-hmm.
What would you really want them to hear right now? Or what do you really feel like you want to share with them right now?
That's a beautiful question. Anyone who's feeling voiceless, I would love to share with them that they are so beautiful, they are so loved, and they are so, I don't even know how to express it. It's like you have a right to speak. You have something important to share. Being who you are is why we're here, to express ourselves in this world. And you have a right to do that. And if there's something stopping you, or you're feeling fear for whatever reason, I would really encourage you to get some support to be able to move past it, because it's really, you can't live a full and fulfilling and loving and joyous and blissful life from the place of voiceless. It's just not possible. And you deserve it. You really do. And it's possible. It really is. Seriously, it doesn't matter where anyone's at right now. The possibility is there for everyone, And they just might need to get some help to just take those baby steps, one step at a time. But what's on the other side, I'm telling you, if somebody told me back in my teenage years, I'd be living this dream life with the love of my life, I would have thought they were out of their minds. I really honestly would have never believed it. And so I believe that your dreams can come true too. I didn't even have this dream. I mean, even dreams you don't even dare to dream can come true. I mean, that's the funny part, right? I didn't even think about these possibilities. That's how shut down I was, or, thought my life would always be not that great. So yeah, I love people to know that no matter where they are, they really can create a life of joy and peace and harmony within themselves and with others.
It's beautiful. And so I think, some of the biggest takeaways with that last piece there is, you deserve it.
Mm-hmm.
You deserve it. You are worthy of it. And it is possible for you, no matter where you're at and what you got going on. It's a process.
Yeah. It's so worth it though. It's so worth it. Yeah. And it's not always easy. And yet living voiceless isn't easy either.
Yeah.
And that was the thing. I think that was what helped me take those steps way back. It was kind of like, if I don't make some changes and move in a different direction, this is what I've got. It's not going to be any different a year from now, 10 years from now, 15, 20 years from now. And I'm thinking, is this really what I want? So, ask yourself, is where you are what you want? Because like you said, you deserve more. And it is there. It's just walking through that door.
Yeah. Yeah. And so there is a bit of irony in that. If you want to not have fear fuel your life, we actually have to face the fear and feel it.
Exactly.
In order to feel less of it. And that can feel contrary and seem contrary and not make logical sense. And yet it is the truth that we see and that we hear. And I myself also have experienced time and time and time again. So I am so grateful that you chose to share this part of your story with us, even decide, even though it's kind of taking it in a vault and it's not so much what you have shared recently, it sounds like it was really beautifully timed for this message to be shared in the way that it was. And I really appreciate that. And so I want to end with a couple things. One is I want to ask you, since a huge part of this community is about inspiration, because that really fuels meaningful success and deeper satisfaction in life. I want to ask you, who or what most inspires you and your life nowadays?
Yeah, great question. It's not so much who for me, because there are different people that I have followed over the years, read their books and been inspired by, but not one that stands out. Like I've read every book, gone to every conference, that kind of thing. It's been pretty general. And I think for the what inspires me the most, when, like, if I'm having challenges or I'm starting to have some negative self-talk or anything like that, what inspires me is when I remember that I am one with Creator, that I'm one with everyone and everything, and that what I put out in the world through my thoughts, through my energy, impacts everybody. And so I look at, what frequency do I want to contribute to? What vibration, what energy to others do I want to contribute to? Negative self-talk or self-love? And so that helps me shift things really quickly, because I mean, that's an easy answer, right? So that's what inspires me, is just that remembrance of how connected we all are, and we're all one, and we're all perfect with our imperfections. There's nothing wrong with any of us. That inspires me.
That's beautiful. What comes up for me as you share that are two statements that I share that I firmly believe in as well, is that you're not alone, even and especially when you feel like you are, right? And then the ripple effect, the power of the ripple effect. And that's really what my whole vision is built off of. And it sounds like that fits so nicely with what you just shared, is that deeper remembrance, right? I love that. I love that. So I know, Marisa, that we are coming up at the end of our interview, and I want to offer you a space and a place to share some of your goodness with the world, just like you're saying, what do I want to contribute to the world? And I am passionate about the work that I do because of experiences that I've had. And so I just want to give you some time, some space right now to be able to share with our audience here in the Facebook community, and also on YouTube when we put the replay on YouTube, of any parts of your work that you want to share, or offers or information that you would like them to know about.
Sure, absolutely. Well, I have a beautiful program that I created that goes through the journey that I talked about a little bit earlier, that really helps women to be able to identify their core wounds that get in their way of creating healthy boundaries and having those authentic conversations from love. So we first go through that process, and then look at healing the wounds, and then creating the healthy boundaries. And it's a program that includes private coaching and videos and transcripts and all the good stuff to be able to not just take information in, but integrate it. Because we didn't talk about this, but I used to be a preschool teacher, an elementary school teacher. I had my own holistic private school. So I understand that when it comes to teaching and learning, to just keep information in your head without knowing how to apply it or integrate it, it's really just creates more frustration and anxiety. And so it's a very step-by-step program where I really hold people's hand in going through that process and really help them to create those relationships that they really want. And I do focus on family, because that seems to be, the toughest, although the information can really be applied to any relationship that's important to you.
And how might folks contact you, connect with you if they're interested?
They can visit my website, which is called magnifyyourmagnificence.com. And I have some free gifts there that can support them with boundaries and conflict, conflict and stuff as well, if they want to request that.
Wonderful. So if anyone in the Facebook community has any questions or connections or contributions to this conversation here with Marisa, you can actually go ahead and you can reply in the comments box. I will be checking it to see if there's any questions, comments, contributions that are there. I'll tag Marisa if she doesn't see it, so that we can come in and provide any additional information, support, or just continue the conversation in a way that works best for everyone and it is inspiring and helpful to everyone. So that is there for you. And if you are on YouTube, catching this on YouTube, you can join us over in the Life Reset community. And what you'll find there is a community of leaders and achievers, be that parents, professionals, business owners, entrepreneurs that care about meaningful success and deeper satisfaction in life and real, true, effective ways to help that happen in a way that's sustainable too, which that practical and powerful piece together, I think, is what makes the difference, right? So thank you so much. Marisa, is there any last comment, any last words, any last sentiments that you would like to leave our listeners with?
Sure. I would like to leave them with just to always remember that no matter how we show up in our relationships or how anyone else is showing up for you, we're all doing the best that we can with our level of understanding, the tools that we have, our awareness. We really are doing the best that we can when it doesn't look like it.
Yeah. And so have some grace for yourself,
Mm-hmm.
right? Have some grace for yourself. So thank you everyone so much for being here with us, for spending your precious time with us, for sharing this space with us. And you can reach out to either of us in the comments. If you have specific questions for me, you can always email me at hello, HELLO, at drtonicoaches.com. That's DRTONI coaches.com, or visit boldandbalancedcoaching.com for other connections. Have an amazing day. I hope you feel inspired, and I hope this is helping you along your process.